Hi, everyone. I wanted to give you a few ideas to think about when exploring literary analysis this week as you write your rough draft, workshop others, and then turn in your final draft. The whole idea with literary analysis is to try to determine exactly what the author's point was. Now, you're reading this in 2020. Some of these stories were written a long ways back, all the way up to today. And what you want to do is act like a detective as you try to decode what's in the story to try to better understand what the point of the story is to you. Now, the good thing about literary analysis is it doesn't matter what the author says, it doesn't matter what other critics say, it's literally subjectively what it means to you. And you just have to back up your explanation of the meaning with actual clues from the text. So look at what's there. Look at who's doing the narrating. Look at the point of view of the narrator. Is it omniscient, like a god in the sky, knowing all and seeing all and reporting all? Is there limited omniscience? You imagine that the narrator understands what's going on with most characters and most action, but tends to focus on one. Is it told from a first person point of view? Is it I, and then they refer to everyone else as he or she? That can determine how much of the story you actually can know as a reader versus imply or infer as a reader. Take a look at symbols. One of the things I focused on most because it was readily evident in Ernest Hemingway's Hills Like White Elephants was the symbols, the way the tracks were laid out, the actual look and contents of the environment, the drinks, the coasters, the tables, the beaded curtain, the time that was spent in the story. These are all important things to focus on. But as you look at the other stories, you want to think about exactly what it is you're being presented with that help you get the clues to try to determine what the story means. For example, if you read if you read Sherwood Anderson's Hands, you realize that the narrator knows about the past, knows about the present, knows things that only Wing Biddlebaum slash Adolph Myers would have known, but never tells us exactly what happens. The whole story seems to be based upon finding out what the truth is, and only you can determine what you think the truth is. Did Adolph Myers do what he was accused of doing? Or did the public belief in gender roles and sexuality and the fears involved with the unknown or simply the unasked determine his fate? How did Wing become Wing based upon what he thought or felt that he thought really happened in his past? When you think about stories like The Yellow Wallpaper, it's a social commentary on how doctors treat patients and how husbands treat wives and men in general treat women, and how we have to ask ourselves, how much should we do based upon the clues we're given? How much should we help based upon the requests for help? How much do we need to actually pay attention to the cure being worse than the disease? When you think about stories like Raymond Carver, when you think about stories by Sherman Alexie or Shirley Jackson and The Lottery, you need to ask yourself what's expected, what's predetermined, what do we see happening, what do we expect to have happen based upon the things we've already seen. Now, you have, I believe, 16 stories out of 17 presented in the last 2 weeks that you can choose from. Any story on the list available on my website, you can choose from to write about, except Ernest Hemingway's Hills Like White Elephants, because there was a discussion of that. The example outline I presented for Hemingway's story, those are the chunks of information, the pieces of the puzzle that you could examine to take a look and try to understand, overall what the point is. It's not just the fact that the man wants Jig to abort their pregnancy. It's the idea of why would he, and why is it important to tell a story like this then, and why is it important to tell a story like this now? What are the expectations of society? What do we wish would happen? And then what do we imagine does happen based upon the clues we're given? So as you think about this, just try to play detective. Try to unearth the clues, try to determine what's written, try to assume what's under the surface. As I mentioned, one of Hemingway's uh, patterns of writing was what he called the iceberg theory. 7/8 of an iceberg is underwater, while only 1/8 remains above water. The 1/8 above water, that's what's written on the page. Those are the actual details and words he gives us. The 7/8 that's underwater, that's what we have to deduce and infer based upon our knowledge being brought to bear on the story. All these stories have a point. All these stories I gave you to choose from are wonderful stories. They're written from a variety of viewpoints. They're written in a variety of styles. They're written in a variety of times, genders, circumstances. So I'm sure there's one that you can identify with. And you don't have to necessarily like the story to be able to try to determine why it was written the way it was with the point in mind that was trying to be reached by the author. If you have any questions, please feel free to email. I'm going to get back to a few of you. It's been a very busy week. We had our online creative writing conference yesterday at Clackamas, and I spent all day working on that and the week leading up to it. So send me an email. I'll get back to you as quickly as I can. Definitely look for your papers very soon because I want you to see them before paper one, before you start working on paper two. And again, any questions, let me know. And good luck writing essay two. I wish you well. Just play detective. You can't be wrong if you explain what you saw and how you interpreted it. That's the main takeaway. You cannot be wrong. All right? Thanks.